players in position, and we have the inside track on their every move.
Monster!
You have no idea what I really am.
This is so moated.
Stay back!
I think not.
Well, there seems to be a theme of sort of dissension in the team. You go from like the very first episode where the younger heroes were splitting up from the older heroes. Season 2, where you have the incognito heroes and even dissension between like Wally West and Nightwing at one point. And in this team, or this season, characters like Beast Boy are deciding that like what the Justice League is doing isn't enough. Is the theme of like characters within a team finding their own way a theme that you constantly began running, or does it work with every story that you kind of come up with?
Well, I think one of the biggest themes for the entire series is just coming of age, growing up. And growing up encompasses rebellion. It encompasses not necessarily like, I hate my dad, I hate my mom kind of stuff, but just like having to assert one's independence, hoping that your parents or your mentors have given you both roots and wings. And we are going to always be exploring as we keep bringing in young characters, as our characters continue to grow up and get older, we continue to bring in young characters so that it's still always Young Justice. That evolution, revolution, rebellion is always going to be an aspect of the series.
So, I loved in the first 2 seasons. I'm a big Milestone fan, Ray McDuffie fan. Seeing Static, Rocket, Icon. So I would have just been happy just to see those characters return. But then you bring in Hardware, Amistad, Holocaust. I was just fell in love. So I'm just curious. Bringing in the Milestone characters, it seems to be fitting with one of the themes of the Milestone comic line to instill a sense of belonging in the younger generation seems to be one of the themes of the show. I was curious, bringing in Milestone and Dwayne McDuffie characters, anything you can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, it was a goal of the show to, I mean, first of all, we're building a DC Universe show, but we also want it to reflect the world around us. We want it to be as diverse as possible. Dwayne's work is influential on us and the show.
We were huge Milestone fans. I mean, let's just start there.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's just important to us to kind of start bringing these characters in. You know, we sit down and we look at lists of characters. I think every season, you know, we're trying to weed out, you know, A, you know, which ones we like ourselves, and B, which ones fit, you know. And I think the Milestone characters fit very well in our universe, and just help kind of round out the world a little bit more in ways that, you know, other characters in the DC universe might not. So they've been fun for us to sort of drop in, see how they fit into the world, and then grow, I think, in our own unique way. Because I think all of the characters, you know, might take some steps outside of the norms that you might see in the comics, but while still respecting what you see in the comics. That's always been a goal, is change while respecting the source material. So it's been a pleasure to work with Milestone characters to accomplish that.
I'm glad that we got a season 3, beyond thankful. I'm crossing my fingers for a season 4. If something doesn't work out, though, would you guys consider a Young Justice movie to continue the story?
We consider a Young Justice puppet show to continue the story. I mean, you know...
any medium works for us.
Yeah, I mean, we just...
I would watch an all puppets episode.
Seriously, I mean, you know, those decisions are way above our pay grade, and they're not up to us, but we love this universe, this Earth 16 version of the DC universe. We love these characters. We love the people we work with on the show. We will take any and every opportunity to keep telling stories in this setting with these characters, keeping in mind that that's not a decision we get to make. But we're, you know, crossing our fingers and hopeful.
So Halo has been a really standout character on the show this season, and she's really been special because she's truly unique in that there hasn't really been a character like her. So what I would love to know is what inspired you to create this version of Halo versus what she first appeared as in the comics?
Well, I think it does start with what was in the comics, with what Mike Barr and Jim Aparo did with Halo was really interesting. And then the first sort of step for us was to say, okay, but how does that fit into our universe? And how do we make it cohesive? So, for example, in the comics, the alien entity that invades the young dead girl's body is something that I may not pronounce it right because I've read it, but no one ever read it out loud to me. But I think it was pronounced Oracli or something like that. It sort of reads like Oracle, only we have a character named Oracle, so we're not calling it that. And that was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but that becomes just this added element, whereas using a mother box was organic to our show and seemed to really fit. Then on top of that, as we were developing season 3, and you think back, 3.5 years, and Syrian refugees in Europe were a huge issue, and it was something that we wanted to deal with. Obviously, we were dealing with metahuman trafficking, which is a very unsubtle metaphor for human trafficking. And so the notion of this young Karaki girl seemed to fit, and the dangers of metahuman trafficking and the vulnerability of a refugee like that seemed to really fit what we wanted to do with Halo. And you throw a mother box in on top of it, and that became our starting point, at which point I'm going to let you take over to talk about where we went from there.
Right. Well, the whole idea of a spirit of a mother box sort of revivifying a dead body is obviously it's an incredible science fiction idea, and we really started to break down as we were writing her, or what is a mother box, what is a father box, and how does this work when a spirit from a mother box comes out, goes into a dead body, comes alive, is now informed by biology and hormones that the technology of the mother box never supplied it before. It's got to create a lot of confusion and identity issues, and so we're just trying to start to write it out beat by beat. Became clear, well, mother box doesn't necessarily mean female. This is a alien piece of technology that we have dubbed a mother box. We've also dubbed the father box. It implies male, it implies female. These are rough translations of a foreign alien device. It doesn't necessarily mean that a mother box is female. So in going through Halo's story, these things must be occurring to her with her new organics, with her new biology, with the hormones that are going through her. And so it became to me a very clear question. Is she actually female? I think this is a question that she would ask herself. And this is one that we decided to just play out in the show. Halo to me is sort of like this perfect science fiction teenager, if you will. That she.
There's no such thing.
I mean, metaphor.
In that, she is an alien spirit waking up in a body and coming to know this body for the first time, getting echoes of what body was there.
I remember
before,
waking up
in
what seemed like an alien body.
Having to then deal.
When a mother box gets into my body.
But having to deal with issues of, relationships and sexuality and religion, and so many of these issues are coming at her, and she is learning how to deal with them
On the fly.
And honestly, it's a mess. And this is something I think any teenager can relate to. I think honestly, adults can relate to this kind of a messy character. And we wanted to embrace that, and we wanted to explore that, and we wanted to play it out over several episodes to see how she reacts to these various inputs that are coming along. And it takes a while. I mean, the season's not over yet, but I think we will progress her to a certain point that hopefully our fans will be happy with.
I liked what Brion said early on. He said, I don't care who you are, I like who you are. He doesn't
Yeah.
care whether it's male, female, whatever, he likes who she
She
is.
says, I'm just me.
Right.
Is that okay?
It's
And-
acceptance.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the audience feels the same way. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. But one thing I wanted to know was Dr. Jace gives her some information that she wasn't expecting, that like cells in her body could be being destroyed. So is Dr. Jace somebody we can trust?
She's an enigmatic character, isn't she?
Yeah.
We don't want to speculate on whether or not you can trust her.
Okay.
My silence is my answer.
Okay.
Speaking of like trustworthy characters, one of the more amusing things to me this season are the scenes with Glorious Godfrey talking to Granny Goodness, talking to Lex Luthor, and they're basically just like twirling their mustaches, saying, you know, like, "Oh, you must be so tired being nefarious, Mr. Luthor. Oh yes, Godfrey." And of course, throughout the whole series, Luthor has had his hands on all these pies. You have a history of incorporating villains in your animated series, from Gargoyle to Spectacular Spider-Man to this, be it Xanatos, Norman Osborn, Lex Luthor, who they have a very kind of professional mindset. I know a line I think said in those previous shows is that revenge is a sucker's game. These are characters who kind of think 2 steps ahead of the heroes. And one of the scenes I was really shocked at was the idea that like they know who the heroes are, at least like Ocean Master did. So is it challenging to constantly write villains who are continually outwitting the heroes or playing kind of a long game where the heroes are just beginning to be aware of over 22 episodes a season?
I mean, everything's challenging, I guess, but that's no more challenging than anything else to me. I mean, what we try to do is give all our characters, the good, the bad, everything in between, we give them agency. So we may say, this happens. How is everybody going to react to that? And, you know, Vandal gathered a group of like-minded individuals. There have been changes in the lineup of the Light for various reasons. Rachel Gould has decided that he doesn't want to be part of it anymore. But, you know, Lex, Queen Bee, these are some of the stalwarts. And so, you know, Lex is a lot of fun to write. G. Gordon Godfrey is a ton of fun to write.
I love, say, James Arnold Taylor. I miss Tim Curry, but James Arnold Taylor is still great.
Yeah, I mean, you know, James Arnold Taylor and David Kay had really huge shoes to fill in taking over for Tim and Miguel. And, you know, we can't say enough positive about Tim and Miguel, can't say enough positive about James and David. That's not an enviable position to have to jump into. These are stunningly significant actors and with unique voices and unique acting skills, and for these guys to jump in and make it feel as seamless as they have is a knockout to me. I mean, just a real testament, not just to their talent, but to their dedication to honoring the 2 guys that came before them. And that was very much what James and David both spoke about, that they took this as not a gig, but as a kind of responsibility that they were picking up the torch and trying to run with it. We really appreciated that.
Yeah. It is very difficult to write the villains, to have them always ahead of the heroes, the plotting ways to destroy our heroes, you know. And hopefully, you know, we fleshed out our characters enough, our heroes enough, that they will sort of inform us on how to counter the villains. But, you know, early on, we wanted to make sure that the villains weren't, you know, stereotypical cartoon villains that were tripping over each other and their own greed and stuff like that. We needed them to work together and be deadly smart, like deadly cooperative, and make sure that they worked together very well, and each of their specialties complemented the other even, so that they could one-up each other. And this is the Light, of course, is who I'm referring to here.
I mean, there are tropes in villain teams where all the heroes really need to do is stall, because the villains will end up fighting with each other, and they'll wind up, you know, destroying their own plan because they can't get along. And one of the very first things we both agreed on is, that's not going to be our villain, our villain team. They are going to get along very well. They're going to cooperate with each other. It's going to be very rare when they're at odds, and when that does happen, it's going to be clear and understandable why one is no longer. You know, when Sportsmaster decides that he's no longer going to be the enforcer for the light, you know exactly why it's taking place and what restitution he feels he needs. But we weren't going to just have them sort of smash against each other for no good reason. Really.
And the mustache twirling too, like I'm really sensitive to that too, because I kind of hate that trope with villains, but like we let some of the villains have that this season because like we set it up like so. I mean, media has always been a very important part of the series. It's been an important texture to sort of reflect what's going on in the world around our heroes and villains. But
I just love that Luther has a blind trust. I mean, not so subtle to Trump, as it were.
yeah, I mean, you know, that exchange that you're talking about, like, and you were talking about it too, between Godfrey and Lex. I mean, they're just egging each other on, and they are twirling mustaches, and that really is to show like how in control of the media the villains are in the series, and that is to set up the latter half of our third season.
But Luther's nothing like Trump. He has much better hair.
But yeah, obviously we're setting up Beast Boy and a social media war through his team, the Outsiders, against Lex specifically, and Gretchen as well. Gretchen Good, who of course is Granny Goodness. So it's a different kind of story for us, but still, you know, I think dovetails with the covert ops stories we've done in the past. But hopefully is, as we always try to do, reflective of the times.
There's one question that's specific and then maybe more general, just dealing with what you've already been discussing. Bart and Eduardo, are they a couple? And much more generally, how are you actually able to incorporate what you know is going on socially? And there are a lot of huge issues that happen. You're developing stories, you're developing characters, but there's a lot going on around us. What pressures do you feel? What freedoms do you feel, or lack thereof? How does that all impact you? Starting with Bart and Eduardo.
I've seen that online. That's interesting. I definitely enjoy seeing sort of the interaction that we have with our audience as artists, as filmmakers, as storytellers. You know, I like what we put on screen, right? Obviously, we don't tell every aspect of everything. We run out of screen time. This is an interesting case where the fans have sort of like helped sculpt this story, you know, and until we say one way or the other which way it goes, it really is sort of an exchange with the fans that they get to put into some of the gaps that we don't fill up. They put something into. And it was very interesting and touching to see that some people, not everybody did, but some people did read that into it, and I thought that was a very interesting idea. And for the latter part of your question.
Yeah, so just more generally, because again, there is so much going on in our time socially, and here you're developing stories, developing characters, and so on in a traditional way. But what freedoms do you feel, or what obligations, or however you want to look at it, to sort of address, whether directly or more likely indirectly, some of these social events that are surrounding us?
I mean, I think it's a texture of the show. We've always tried to look at what's going on in the world around us and reflect what's going on in the world around us, and sometimes a very direct way, and sometimes there's a science fiction twist on it. So we've always had the goal of making the show feel as realistic as possible. I mean, we try not to think that we're making a cartoon. We kind of write it, I think, and conceive it like it's a live action show, and we want fans to feel that it reflects the world around them, the news stories that are going on around them, the society around them, the people around them. We want it to have as much diversity that reflects the world around them as possible, so that people buy into the stories and the stakes involved as well.